Welcome to American History Notes, where I discuss conclusions I've drawn from studying American history and conclusions you might not agree with, you might even be offended by, but at least if you have your own opinion, that will be success for me, that you've studied it and looked into it. So today I'm still in a special topics series on African American history. I'm going to bring up people that you don't normally hear about. Not be talk, won't be talking about athletes or entertainers necessarily, but people who have accomplished things that have moved society, culture, and African Americans forward. People that are important to mention who, I wasn't taught about in school. I had to find out on my own. So we'll begin today. Uh, um, in World War One still saw America as a segregated society with African Americans at best second class citizens and at worst a permanent underclass viewed not unlike the peasant of medieval period in Europe. Black men eagerly joined the war effort. Although black units had been disbanded after the Civil War as of 1869, there was still the 24th and 25th Infantry and the 9th and 10th Cavalry. Black men were drafted based on different and unfair criteria than white men at a slightly higher rate, being 10% of the population, but 13% of the inductees. Most black men were restricted to labor units and not in the combat sector, but an uproar among black activists was part of the reason for the creation of the 92nd and 93rd predominantly black combat units. Henry Johnson was a notable black soldier fighting in the Argonne Forest hand to hand with Germans. He would not receive the Medal of Honor for nearly a century posthumously. The first black fighter pilot of World War I was Eugene Bullard, a man who nearly saw his father lynched, who went to France and served with distinction at Verdun, then served as a fighter pilot, given the nickname the Swallows of Death. He was never recognized as a war hero in the U.S. due to institutional racism of our military institutions in those days. I'll miss many notable black men who fought in World War I, but I want to move, for the sake of brevity, to World War II. The recent controversy between two famous filmmakers about whether or not there were black Marines at Iwo Jima comes to mind. There were four black companies of Marines at Iwo Jima, but two companies of the 36th Marine Depot landed. Let's point out a few black war heroes of this conflict, World War II. You have to dig deeper to review units that merited distinction, and there were several. I'm usually picking out names for you to study. But the 320th Barrage Balloon Battalion at D-Day and the 333rd Field Artillery at the Battle of the Bulge are important units to consider. When you read the book Seven Roads to Hell about Bastogne, it's very interesting how prominent a black artillery unit plays in that author's book about what they were able to accomplish for him. Now, back to individuals. Doris Miller, a cook third class, started his day at Pearl Harbor preparing to serve meals and wound up moving the dying ship's captain to a safer spot and manning a 50 caliber anti-aircraft machine gun when his white shipmates thought the cook was only going to be feeding ammunition. He was the first black American to be awarded the Navy Cross and would die in action 2 years later. Marine Sergeant Thomas McFadder would later be a lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy during Vietnam, but at Iwo Jima he served in combat. Most of the black Marines were involved in supply roles, but black units did suffer under mortar attacks and the infamous Banzai charge. So yes, Mr. Eastwood, they were there. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the Tuskegee Airmen and go on to some other important points next time, but I'll leave it there for today. I hope you'll study American history and that you'll even if you don't agree with me, you study it and you have your own conclusions. That's fine. Thank you very much. Take care.